Hey guys, welcome to the Troy Gramling podcast. I'm so glad that you're with us today. You know, we're talking about everyday leadership. Sometimes we get the opportunity to hear from those who have had huge success, write the books and teach the conferences. Sometimes those folks live right across the street. And today's guest, that's exactly what we have the opportunity to do. We have Jack and Meg Owoc with us. They are the founders and leaders of Bang Energy and VPX and just a whole lot of different supplements and drinks. And we'll talk about all that in just a moment. But I've had the great opportunity to know you guys for quite a while. And I look forward to us having a conversation. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Are we
We're
taking
honored
the
to be
road
here.
less traveled today?
This is just a little disclaimer right off the beginning. I'm just the host, all right? What Jack says, he is responsible for. So you guys tell us a little bit about your family, where it all began.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Ohio, and Jack was born in around Pittsburgh area. And we now have 5 kids, and our family is growing, God willing. And we met here in South Florida. And
How long ago did you meet?
We met actually online because Meg was doing these things with Twitter, and so this was early on in the infancy of social media, and she kept emailing me these videos. And the way she did them back then, she would go on the beach, she would set up a camera on the tripod, she'd do one with our protein bar, with all of our products. Her and her sister were on it. Her sister went on my diet. I had something called the zero impact diet. All the pastors here at Potential Church were on that diet. They lost from 25 to 65 pounds. And that was their reward to really start digging in and eating good once that diet was over, baby. You knew about that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Meg also put her sister on it, and she lost about 40 pounds. And Meg kept doing these videos, and social media, again, was in its infancy. And she would tag me on Facebook. And so I go, wow, this young lady's really on the cutting edge with these videos and everything like that. And so she was trying to get my attention in other ways as well. But after about the 20th video, I had these tickets to this fashion show. And as guys do, I had 10 upfront VIP, and I had 6 guy friends to go from work. And I said, let me just invite this girl. So that ended up actually being it wasn't supposed to be a date. I just wanted to learn about social media. And so Meg and I had hit it off real good. And so I told my buddies, I go, bye, you're on your own.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really a date, but we hung out that night. And then I'll let you talk.
Yeah.
Hold it before you do now. Hold it before you do, Meg.
Sure.
Now listen, for those of you who are listening and aren't able to see, it's easy to see why Jack invited Meg to go on that non-date with him. She's a beautiful woman. But before you talk, I got to ask you, what in the world made you go on that date with
sure.
Jack?
Well, it definitely speaks to the type of personality that I am. But the crazy thing about this story about my sister is that I didn't even know that was Jack's website. I didn't even know that was Jack's website until like years after. And it was a really cool moment where I was like, wow, Zero Impact Diet, that's your website? And I couldn't even believe it, because then I told him the whole story about my sister, and she actually was able to lose 80 pounds. So she was going through a rough time, and we found this website and we both started using it. I was in college and she was still back in Ohio. So that was really cool. But yeah, speaking back to the type of person I am, I absolutely get obsessed with something. So the reason we met is because I was actually volunteering to do a radio show. And the radio show was sponsored by Jack's Products.
Uh-huh.
And so my co-host was like, oh, you should start sending these video blogs and these pictures and stuff to the CEO on Facebook. He would love to see it. And so once I started looking him up, I was like, wow, he's really good looking. And then I'm on Google, is Jack Owoc single? And so I'm pretty much figured out that he was.
He's
I wasn't certain.
He don't think I'm good looking. He just asked you why. In other words, what he was insinuating is, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, it was great because he when he asked me out, he goes, we're going to go. And so I'm thinking, is there going to be, his girlfriend there or his wife or whatever? When he showed up, it was him and a bunch of guys. And I was like, perfect. This is great.
And it all worked out for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, her natural hair is really kinky curly. and it was out like this. And one of the like producers there, his hair was the same way. And I'm like, this is really crazy. But as time went on, so, you know, we only had a short time together, like a week together before she was going to fly out to San Diego to try out for the San Diego Chargers cheerleaders, because she had made the Florida Panthers cheerleaders, the Miami Marlins, and she was now going for the big time. And so it was kind of, I don't know, like a strange story, but what I learned in that first week is we were at the pool at, where was it? Fountain Blue. And she had the tweet deck, right? And there's 4 Twitter things up, right? Tweet deck, a deck of 4 different Twitter things. And she goes, I'm going to invite some of my friends. So she just tweeted something out within literally 30 minutes. Like 30 of her friends were at the pool. And I go, wow, it just shocked me that, hey, things are changing. And this set off like a light bulb in my mind that with this one tweet, there's 30 people within minutes, things have changed. And this was way back, probably about 12, 13 years ago, right?
Yeah, that was in 2010. So he was actually looking for how social media could, you know, help grow his company. And I was just like super interested in social media. I was doing graphic design at the time, and I was thinking about going back to school. But at the time, you couldn't really learn much in social media because everyone was still learning it themselves. And so that's why it was like a perfect match right in the beginning, because I was learning it myself. I was getting really into it, very passionate about it. And so, yeah, it was a perfect mix because he was looking for what I was able to, you know, give to him in the company.
So, so we'll come back to the company in a minute. But before we do, I know, you know, you guys went on the original date, you connected with each other, fell in love, and you got married. But you did that a little bit differently than most people. You actually did it on TV. So you guys were on Say Yes to the Dress, I think. Is that what it was? That's what it's called, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you were on the show with us.
Yes, I had that. I still from time to time see myself on that show when they do reruns. But
yeah, they rerun it a lot, which is good for us, right?
But anyways, how did that happen? I mean, how did you end up on Yes to the Dress?
Again, just me being super obsessed with what I want to do and what I want to accomplish, and I just tackle it every single day. So I just thought it'd be something interesting. Like I've actually, I really was very shy when I was young. So I've always just tried to step out and take opportunities to help me be able to speak in front of the public and do things that were a little more extroverted than I typically am. So I'm always looking for opportunities. So I thought it'd be really cool. At the time, I was like watching all the wedding reality shows, and I'm like, we need to be on the show. So I emailed them every single day. And they didn't respond. And finally, they wrote back and they were like, thank you so much for your enthusiasm, but this is why you can't be on the show. And I'm like, okay, I'll overcome any objection that you give me. Tell me what I need to do. And so basically what they thought is like my group of girls wasn't going to be like controversial enough. So I said, look, and they kind of told me, they're like, unless you can like, their exact words were, genuinely come up with some drama that will happen. I'm like, sure, we can do that. We can make it happen.
So the thing she did, which was really great, I admire, she never quits. So you're not allowed to submit a DVD, but she submitted a DVD of her. And I think that's what grabbed her attention.
Yeah, I made a YouTube video instead of just like filling out the form, and I just put the link in every single like little form place of just link. Like watch the video.
So, and that's a great, we talk about everyday leadership. There's lots of people who have lots of dreams who never pursue them or assume somebody will say no. And I think what people forget sometimes is most of the time people do get a no at first.
Yeah.
There's very few that they're overnight success,
Right.
and whatever it is that they're pursuing. Now, before we get to what the business is today and all the incredible things that have happened, I know, Jack, you started as a science teacher and I guess a scientist as a result of that, and creating supplements to help people be healthy, to help them build muscle. What was it that drove you at the time? Was it health? Was it science? Was it desire to build a big company that could influence? What was the driving that took you from the classroom through a lot of challenges, as you've shared before, to where you are today?
I think the fact that I was naive and not knowing what was ahead of you, right? So I didn't have nothing, which was great. I was in this apartment in Davie, and the rent was about $400, and they were constantly giving me notices and this and that. And so I had this opportunity to live in my store for $375. I'm used to these big numbers. Excuse me, for $375. And I noticed a chiropractor had this place. It was only 700 square feet, and in the back there was a shower because he used to shower the animals. And I go, this is perfect. It's better than my apartment. I could live here. Vita House. It was a joke I created on the thing. Vitamins in the front, house in the back. And so I slept on an air mattress in the back. And I didn't know any better. I just knew that it was better than an apartment. I just knew that all my rent would be going to buying products. And I was getting paid. The Broward County school system is the 5th largest in the nation. It's public school. It's not private. And I was only getting paid $1,900 a month, once a month. That's all they would pay you. And the second week I was in business on a Friday, we took in $704. And I was blown away. I'm like, when you're getting this check and I get to do what I like and answer the door with no shirt on, rip like Rambo, and have this eclectic lifestyle, it was great. It fit my personality and everything like that. And I didn't know about viral marketing, but all the cops and all the criminals were there. Greg Mize, he used to be here. They were all there. And Greg Mize had let his dog go, and make sure you have this on the podcast, to chew up one of the criminals that used to come in. And they both swore they would kill each other, among other people, if they were there at the same time. Susan Castro let all his criminals go from the jail. So you had a lot of drug dealers. And so the parking lot in this remote back of like the Winn-Dixie where the dumpsters are, that's what it lined up to. There were all these Ferraris and Lamborghinis. And the criminals were getting bigger, taking supplements and doing my program. So the cops had to follow suit because they're all, in competition with each other on the streets. And I didn't know anything about viral marketing, but I'd answer the door with no shirt on. I was really shredded. When you came in, I didn't have time. It got so busy, I didn't have time to take the products out. I'd give you a box cutter and go find the product you need. But all this created a viral marketing. I didn't know anything about marketing, but it's just this eclectic behavior that comes naturally to me that people were interested. They go get, and then Natural Muscle named me supplement guru, and I had a column to write and testing products and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to get into that, but that's what created this store where the amount of money coming in was crazy. We had so much metrics and products that they would have to sit outside. There's no room to put them. And by the end of the day, I would sell them. And it was just sheer craziness about how busy this store was and who we reached. We even reached Potential Church, where I say 70 of your pastors were on our program with the supplements diet and training, and they lost 25 to 65 pounds. And like I say, those pastors, they went on a big eating binge on that. That's not the idea. You're supposed to take it from there and make it a lifestyle. But
it's a journey, that's for sure. And but yeah, it's been incredible for me to get to watch. I wasn't here from the beginning, but early on, and get to see the success that you've had. And so let's go back for just one more moment, because I want to ask you. So you go from that store, and you're the dude. So like you said, there's a uniqueness and then creative to your personality. But then you get big enough where you got to hire a few people. How difficult is that first step? Because I imagine there's a lot of folks who are listening and they're thinking, man, I need to hire somebody, but they're afraid to turn over what they've built and worked so hard for. But that first step. So as you think back about some of the early people that you hired, what are some of the things that you learned early on when it came to bringing people on to help you accomplish the vision?
Well, even the first one person I brought on was my brother. That ended up pretty good. But even the first people I brought on, the main girl that was working there stole from me. One of my nephews and his friends stole from me. I was driving by the store and I see them loading up the back of their trunk and selling products. So people will steal from you. There's just extreme dishonesty, and it's hard to make it in this world because it's mutiny from within and then the outside, and it's always on attack. It never ends. And so you learn these things, unfortunately, and that's what happens. But you got to deal with them, and I don't know if you want me to expand on that, but that's how it started, and it's still that way today.
Well, how do you keep knowing that people are people, and how do you keep from becoming so cynical that you remain small? You know, in other words, how do you convince yourself to, or what systems have you learned to put in place? And Meg, you can jump in here as well, because I know you lead a bunch of people today as well in the company. What have you all learned about hiring, to that while that's still going to happen, there's some things we can do to at least limit it somewhat?
Well, I'm going to answer first and then her answer. So previous girlfriends and everything like that, and family members, and and I don't know if Meg is like this, but she could speak for herself. They would be shocked how I could forgive people. Lady stole $495,000, and just get over it, because if you get stuck on it, you'd be a disaster. So they couldn't believe my ability to forgive. But what else are you going to do? You can't physically harm them. You can't sue everybody. But it just happens almost on a daily basis, especially when you have a few thousand employees. But you can give your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I have learned so much over the last 12 years I've worked for a bank, and really through like the interview process, because I wasn't as good at interviewing people as I am now. In the beginning, I wasn't able to like see the red flags, or, I do think the intuition that you have inside you is from God. And so being able to listen to that and like understand, okay, is this person right for me or not? But what's really important too is to ask the person questions about their values and about their lifestyle, because what really has worked for us is hiring people that have similar morals and values. I mean, it'd be great if everybody would be Christian, but you can't hire just within one religious aspect. But you can speak to them about what are their values, like what are they passionate about, and doing that and being really strategic with that process, and like thinking of the right questions to ask has really helped me over the year, finding the right person that's going to mesh well with our company, and inevitably will be, probably more loyal or more honest. And, people can fool you in the beginning, but I've kind of learned over the years to like listen to my gut feeling, listen to God speaking to me, like, is this the right person or not? And also I think like there's an example that Jack could share. There was one company that the main question that they would ask people is, how do you feel about losing? And if that person, because they I think it was a sports company, but they would hire athletes, like college athletes. And if they weren't like visibly like upset about the thought of losing, they weren't like the right culture fit for their company. So just like thinking of those unique things that would pertain to your business, whatever it would be, and learning what that question is, and even just comparing one candidate to the next, and like interviewing multiple candidates, because that's a good way too to like really compare how they made you feel, or the answers to the really important questions that you wanted to know.
No, that's good, because that seems to me to always be one of the biggest challenges. And it doesn't matter if you lead a large company like you guys do, or one that's just getting started. It's who you hire, because it has so much to do once it gets bigger than you with your success.
Yeah.
I just wanted to interject. That was Vitamin Water. So he would only hire athletes, and if they didn't become visibly upset when he asked them about losing, he wouldn't hire them. And that company sold for $400 million. But Richard Branson and Steve Jobs and all these, when I was listening to them, they would go, "What do you value most?" And every single one of them said loyalty. And at the time, I didn't get it. I'm like, man, if you have a sales guy, you want him to be a racehorse and go. And then over time, I learned, it's loyalty, because people will deceive you, and they can create more turmoil and everything. And again, mutiny within, like Moses, that it's very, very tough to deal with. So now my number one thing I look for in an individual is loyalty, especially if they're a high up C-suite executive.
Now, when you think about so define loyalty, what is loyalty in your mind? What does that look like?
It's just somebody that'll stick by your side and not have a self-serving agenda, not do things behind your back. A lot of people that come in, it's unbelievable how they'll have this self-serving agenda where they'll try to create a company within your company, like one sales guy did. He goes, "Those are my sales guys," and would protect them and just create this massive amount of product, massive amount of what would you call it?
Well, you think the scripture, Jesus himself said, a house divided against itself is going to fall. And it doesn't matter whether it's a church or a family or a company. When somebody builds a kingdom unto themselves, it's going to create issues. And, it's funny that you bring that up, because that can be driven out of wealth. I want to get rich and I'm going to do it. But even if there's not an opportunity for money, sometimes it's just about power. Sometimes it's just about, I like the feeling that all these people look at me. And I think even sometimes people can do that with being hungry for that reinforcement. They don't even realize what they're doing. But if they would just look up, they'd realize that they have built, that's a great way of saying it, a company amongst themselves.
Right, a company within it. It would be like a pastor coming here and just creating his own team, right, apart from you. And then you have this severe conflict in your business. And we've had that done so many times. And you would, I would think, like, if I would go to another company, how do you even believe that you're going to do that and then carry through with it? I mean, it's insane. But a lot of people do it, especially high up. They try to create vision and get everybody on their side and everything like that. We had a recent COO did that, where she gave everybody bonuses and did all this stuff, and then told everybody, I'm running the company, don't listen to Jack Owoc. It's just bizarre. How do you do that? But people do it.
It is. Even in ministry, somebody will start a connect group, and they'll basically build a church within a church. So it makes it difficult to continue to trust, pour into people. And what are some of the ways that once you find the right people, and how do you intentionally train them or pour into them, or is that something that happens more organically, or how do you build the team that it's allowed you to do what you've done at Bang?
Well, you try to hire people with unique capabilities that you don't have. That when I look at somebody and I tell them in an interview, if it's a C-suite high-level player, I go, look, if I could do what you do better, I don't need you on the team. And so you look for individuals that come with that. And yeah, you have training. Meg will talk about that. We have a robust training program. But again, when you bring in higher level individuals, in other words, if you bring in a sales guy, you want his book of business. Like, who can you call today? And I tell him that, look, you're getting paid a lot of money. If you can't put millions of dollars on the table in your first month, you're out, because you're a liability if you're getting paid $400,000 or $500,000 a year.
Right.
Yeah, and most of my experience over the last 12 years is really hiring like kids right from school, right from college. And with that comes a lot of unique opportunities where you're kind of, that is their first experience having a real job. And so there's a lot of things you have to do, and I've learned over the years. And one of the things that he mentioned is training and having SOPs set in place. And that does take time, but people think rules and SOPs are like bad, but we always teach them that SOPs set you free. Because you don't have to.
In case people don't know, tell them what a SOP is.
A standard operating procedure. So if you don't know how to accomplish a certain task, or this is what I need to find this information, or I need to finish this project, or I need to start this initiative, you can go to that SOP and figure out, okay, these are the steps I need to take in order to get to the end goal. And it allows you to just not have to think too much, because sometimes when you think too much, you end up making the wrong decision, because you're with the SOP, you're just able to know exactly what you need to do. And so that's what's great that we've done over the years, is like build those out. But with younger people in particular, I've learned that just being physically there with them, like present with them, is really, really important to young people, and like building out that team. So in the beginning, I really focused on just being there with them. And I really enjoy mostly at this point in my life, like I mostly enjoy mentoring with people and just sitting there and teaching them how to do things, because I've already done it. Then I do like actually doing some of the things. But the only reason I'm able to sit there and guide them and mentor them is because I've already done it. And so I think part of like being a good leader is not expecting anything out of your team that you couldn't do, haven't already done, or that you wouldn't do along with them. Like, say it's a new challenge, okay, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to do it together. And I think that definitely goes a long way, overall. And just when you're able to do that with the young people that you have, it's really an investment in your company, because the people that I've had for like 4 or 5 years, those are like my biggest assets, because they can drive that vision and that culture with everyone else that comes in underneath them.
When you have young people, it's a tabula rasa, like a clean slate. So that's great, but there's a lot of challenges that Meg has with that. And then when you have individuals at the mid-level and the higher level, they all represent, as you know, different challenges that you have to be able to adapt to. And so that's been challenging, but we've been pretty good over the years. But it's who you hire, right? Who you start with. The problem is the people who sell themselves the best are usually the worst employees. So like when people would sell me in an interview and they would just be a disaster, I'm like, We should have put
Right.
you in sales because you fooled me.
That is interestingly true in my experience as well, and many of the folks I've talked to. Now, from my perspective, and there may be it's something different that you guys have, but you have an effective product, right? There's science behind your product. It's tastes good, no matter what the product is. Well, there's a couple of those old products that didn't necessarily taste good, but were effective. All right. But I've always been amazed at the taste of your product, the effectiveness of your product. And then there's the creativity, the design aspect of it. And then more recently, in the last decade, let's say, the marketing of the viral marketing, all of that. Which of those, if any, or something different, would you say in 2023, as people are leading whatever their product or service might be, is the most important? Is there one more important than the other? Does it take two of the three or all of them? What do you think when you think about the design and creativity versus the marketing versus the product itself?
Well, we have a saying, we don't make people want our products. We make products people want. Can you wrap your mind around that, Troy?
I did. I had to think, but I could.
But so what that means, the reason I made that up, and I have a lot of little sayings like this, is because most people will make a mediocre product, right? They won't make a great product. And then they'll wrap marketing around it, but you have to continuously resell it. So if you make a product like Bang that people want, right? Then you don't have to continuously remarket the same product and your sales continue to increase. And so you make a great product first with all the functionality, science, taste, everything like that. And then you wrap marketing around that product. Same could be said as the church is that, and we discussed this before, like when I come to Potential Church, you're the best teacher in the country by far. I listen to every pastor.
Thank you.
And the music is off the charts. I'm like, what is this music? Why doesn't this church have tens of thousands of people in it? But you have to create a great product first. And then you do have to market to a degree in the church. And then when you get people in, hopefully they have the same experience we do and say, wow, that was amazing. I need to invite somebody to see what's going on in this church. But people just don't get it. I mean, back in the old days, I remember we were running 10,000 people. And you say, well, if the message and the teaching's better and the music's better, where are those 10,000 people? I get mad about it because I'm like, what are you people doing? It's like the world's coming to end. Everything's getting blown up. All this craziness, like off the rails on a crazy train, like Ozzy Osbourne said.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not coming to church. What is it going to take to get you to come to church? So it's very bizarre. So
Yeah.
I always look at marketing too from the church. I don't get into it too much because I'm like, I'd be calling Troy every 5 seconds. Where are these people? Like, we're doing the right things, but what is it? What's that X factor that is, for some reason, the people were going to church back then? It was full. You'd have to stand up on a Wednesday night when you
Right.
came here. And why aren't they here now if the teaching, the message, the music's better? And the
Yeah.
chairs are very
The
nice
chairs,
too.
yes, the chairs are much better. That's for sure. It's when you think about, as your time in businesses were decades now. You're trying to figure out what you just said. So say it again. Say what you said again. You don't make. Tell me the saying.
We don't make people want our products. We make products people want.
All right. So, and I think that's continually changing. And so there's that deeper aspect of what they want,
Right.
so that you can meet that. But that's a great perspective. We got time for just one more question. I know it's hard to believe 30 minutes go by so quick, and we'll have you guys back. I so much that you can say to help people. But I wanted you to just quickly tell us discouragement. Everybody faces it. You guys are no different. There's ups and downs, and you've had huge successes. You've had challenges, and whether they're personal or company driven, whatever it is that discourages us. How do you guys, or what have you done that's effectively helped you to move forward? Because that's I respect both of you guys, and I've seen over decades you've never quit. Your drive has been nonstop, and doesn't matter what wall or obstacles in front of you, you keep going. So what's
Yeah.
the secret?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, successful people have big time challenges as well. So don't always look up to people that are super successful, because we have challenges as well. So it's not always rainbows and sunshine. So for us, I know for sure that spending time with our kids is something that really just like level sets us,
Mm.
because we're dealing with all these things sometimes that are crazy and challenging. But then when you sit down with your kid and you realize how blessed you are by God, by these amazing children, these beautiful children, it really, it's like you kind of laugh at everything else, because this is what really makes you blessed, and this is what makes you really rich, is the family that you have, whether you have kids or not. You do have a family, so whoever it is, spend time with that person, and also too just making sure we're staying in the church and in the Word of God.
Yeah, this is the part of the podcast that I think we could spend an hour on, that I wanted to
Yeah.
go in hard in the paint. You know about hard in the paint because you're a big man. But is everybody believes that when you're a Christian, there isn't a price to pay, and this is going to drive people away from your church. But there's a huge price to pay. Look at every single apostle. Man, I was looking at how they were crucified. One was on an X cross, one was upside down, beheaded, all this stuff. They paid a huge price. And so people just think that they're going to be a Christian and not pay a huge price. The price we paid, just a little bit, $500 million, because we're conservative and we're Christian. And when you get in court where a judge does not like that, you get the smackdown, the $500 million smackdown. And it put our company right now, we're in bankruptcy and everything like that. But because it's because of our beliefs, because in the same day they sent us a message to courts that don't like our types. One was a $273 million judgment. Another one was a $183 million judgment with a nice 5% royalty on bank. That results in millions of dollars every month. Troy, you would love to have that donated
Yes,
to
I
you,
would.
but you didn't intervene with God on my behalf. So here we sit today. They get the millions and you don't. But and so you pay a heavy price. Right now we're under like duress, in bankruptcy, and we had this business that was valued one time between 6 and 8 billion. And how is it valued that a year or two ago, and then all of a sudden today it's getting stolen by the courts and everybody else? I don't know what's happened. I'm waiting on God to show up. We were going to talk about that today because he ain't showing up, but I did learn from Job. Job says God's going to do what he wants to do, how he wants to do it, whenever he wants to do it. And then it makes me question, why do we pray? Because God's ways are as far as the heaven is from the earth compared to our ways. And so why would we pray? Because we pray these stupid prayers and God's probably looking at us and like, well, what are you saying? And so then I say, the prayer I find myself saying nowadays is, it tells you, lean not on your understanding, but I rely only on your infinite wisdom, Almighty God, because when I pray, it's stupid and God doesn't answer it. And so it's like, and then I go, where's the favor? God, I only want a 50-50 shot. Forget 100% favor from God. How do I win? And they announced 2 judgments on the same day, totaling over $500 million. Where are you, God? Where were you in court? We won in court. We got an adverse judgment. We won in the other court. We got an adverse judgment because the judge doesn't go by the law. I even questioned the judge, and that's another thing I wanted to talk about, is in leadership. All my life, I've been taking a leadership position. You said, who do you look up to? I look up to none. I had to coach my basketball team twice. I had to teach my science class in middle school. My mom came to the tennis courts and she goes, why are all those other people on the other side? Because I go, I'm coaching, Mom, because the teacher was in the AC. But all this lack of leadership in my life where I stepped up. So we're in court. Don't do this in court because it's going to cost you. And the judge wouldn't let me read the things that I was commenting on. And so I cited the area of the law where I'm allowed to read these things. And I go, Your Honor, it's the law, blah, blah, blah. And I told him and I cited the law. And he goes, I determine what the law is. And I said, no, the law is what the law is. And you are supposed to enforce the existing law in the books. But you get adverse judgments when you challenge authority like that. And so that's how we walked out of court with a $273 million judgment that's subject to increase by another 167. Just a walk in the park, Troy.
Just a few dollars. But I think, though, that's a huge amount of money that most of us can't comprehend. I know there's some out there that their judgment may be $100, a flat tire, but in a lot of ways is overwhelming to them. And like I said, the thing that I think
I
has
could,
been.
I could pay for that.
Yeah.
At least today.
But the thing that has been encouraging to see is that you guys have continued to persevere, even in the midst of not understanding, right? In the midst of frustration, in the midst of what doesn't necessarily make sense, you've continued to not only be faithful to God's house, but to be faithful to God, to live out your faith. And those are the most difficult times. It's because as Christians, yes, we know it's not all going to go perfect, like you both of you have said, but when it doesn't in our own lives, it's still hard to deal with. And so I appreciate the way you live out your faith, continue to live out your faith. And I think that you didn't ask the question, but you kind of did. Why we continue to pray is because I think a lot of times prayer has more to do with changing us than it does what, God's answer. There's no doubt prayer is important in moving the heart of God, but I think it moves our heart, to align with what He's already trying to do in our lives, and that's often the most challenging thing to do. But you guys, like I said, have lived out what a lot of people preach, and so I appreciate that. And we'll get you back so we can hear more about where you've been. But I'm sure when we get you back, you're going to be in a brand new place and seeing God open up new doors as He continues to transform us and get you ready for what He has ahead for you. And ready what He's got ahead for you guys as well. It is such an honor to get to spend time with you. Like I said, we're trying to learn from the people that God brings into our lives. So I want to encourage you, share the podcast with somebody that that's going through something just like what we've talked about, or is in a certain same position about how to become a leader, the cost, the price, and ultimately the incredible blessing. Love you guys, and we'll see you next Thursday right here on the Troy Gramling Podcast.